Hello, I'm going to make a short series talking about some older textbooks that I managed to get from a nearby second-hand bookshop. And some of these will relate to learning Czech, such as one of my absolute favorites, which is coming up in a later video. But today I want to talk about a book about learning English, which was written in 1955 by the Czech State Pedagogical Publishing House, and it cost a grand price at the time of 6.9 crowns. What's particularly interesting about this book is that it was a real reflection of the communist era. All books at the time were, of course, very heavily scrutinized to make sure that they didn't say anything that was pro-West and anti-communist. And so this book was intended for quite young children. And it does teach English quite well, I would say. But the amount of propaganda in here is just eye-opening. And I have to share some of this with you. So let's start here with a little story about Peter and John are in a shop, and they're looking to buy some exercise books and some pencils. And may I have 2 large ones, please, talking about the books, and I want a red pencil and some blue ink and so on. And this transaction all goes very well. And just as they have finished buying the books, John says, whoops, "Oh, Peter, we mustn't forget, we have to buy some flags and pictures for the Great October Revolution." So really the kind of dialogue that a child would have with another child, but you can see that they use every opportunity to squeeze some pro-communist propaganda in there. And here's another example. It's autumn in the country, and at first it talks about we're in the country and I like the trees and I can see some animals, there are some cows and so on. But they don't miss an opportunity, because here it says, are there any people in the picture? Oh yes! And then it says here, there is a man driving a tractor. He's taking some products of the state farm to town. Why doesn't he use horses? Farmers don't like to work with horses when they can use tractors and other machines. Modern machines make farmers' work easier and quicker. They help to make farmers more productive, and that's why farmers like them. But machines are more expensive than horses. How can farmers buy them? Now here's the big question, of course. How can a farmer possibly afford these expensive machines? Well, communism has the answer. The farmers on the state and collective farms need not buy them. They can have them from the state tractor stations. And throughout this book, it gives the impression that in communist times, there's a world of plenty. In fact, people used to say that the idea of communism was that soon things would be free. There would be so much surplus of everything. There would be no need for money. You would just take whatever you wanted because there'd be so much. So here's another one. 2 people are out on a Sunday walk, and it starts off well enough. They're walking around the city and talking about its history. And with it being Sunday, they talk about what they've done. And in particular, they're talking about what they did the day before. Now, in communist times, everybody was meant to willingly devote plenty of their spare time to voluntary work for the good of the state. So here was the most important matter at the bottom here. They talked chiefly about their work, of voluntary work of the day before, what they'd spent their whole Saturday doing. So to these youngsters, "And what did you do in the factory yesterday?" "We helped a party of bricklayers to build a new wall around the factory." I mean, that's really what young people want to spend all their free time doing, isn't it? It's fantastic. Little kids getting all this brainwashing. And here's a great part. Somebody from Scotland has been to visit Czechoslovakia and now is back in Scotland and writes a letter about their experience. I arrived back in Scotland yesterday. I spent only 3 weeks in Czechoslovakia, which is so different from capitalist Great Britain. I like your collective farms, state tractor stations, and the big new factories which I saw in your towns. You are so lucky to live in such a nice country. Now I can really imagine somebody from Scotland writing that letter back to the communist state in Czechoslovakia. And as a last example of all this devotion to the state and how happy people should be about it, holiday plans. At the end of June, it's about children. We shall leave school for a 2-month holiday, and the pupils are already making plans for the holidays. Well, I remember that when I was a child. Wonderful to get a couple of months off school, play with your friends, go on adventures and so on. But of course, these are good communist-era children with a good attitude towards the state. So, what would they want to do? This is many comrades will be taking part in the voluntary harvest work with the school group of the CSM, the Union of Czechoslovak Youth. A party of 8 boys are going to a holiday camp in the mountains where they will help with the hay harvest. Yeah, in August, I want to take part in a voluntary hop picking. Now that's really what children want to do in their summer holidays, isn't it? But the whole book, to me, is summarized in useful phrases that you're supposed to learn. And normally in a language book you'd expect, how do you do? Please can I have a bag of apples or something? And this one summarizes perfectly what this book is about, a really important phrase for kids to learn. The results of the 5-year plan were very good. Children, really care about the 5-year plan from the Communist Party for making great products, lying with the statistics, because of course the results were never really good, but you daren't say that. So children had to learn the lies, the propaganda early on. The results of the 5-year plan were very good. What a beautiful way to learn English.